are watching this video right now, that means that you have completed about 5 to 7 minutes on your warm-up on that quiz with measuring angles, and you have watched the video on vertical and adjacent angles that was about 4 minutes in length right before this video right here that I'm now going to go through with you in the book. So you should be on page 536. And I said yesterday there's going to be some vocabulary from that vocab sheet that you're going to see sprinkled through the lessons, obviously, as we start to talk about them. So on the vocabulary sheet yesterday, we talked about what vertical angle, a definition of what a picture looked like. We talked about congruent. We talked about adjacent, same thing, a picture and a definition. And so this gives you at the top of page 536 just another visual, another definition, another piece of information where you can go back and look at those type of angles and what they look like and what they mean. So let's just take a peek for a minute at vertical angles that are opposite angles that are formed when you have two lines that intersect. So this model right here that has four angles identified, 1, 2, 3, and 4, we know that they're opposite of each other. So that means angle 1 and directly across from it, angle 3, are vertical to each other. So you see that over here. Angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical. Now, what's this little symbol here mean? It looks like an equal sign and a little tilde above it. That means congruent. So in the video that you watched prior to this, it talked about how vertical angles are also congruent. They're equal to each other, the exact same measurement. So then also angle 2 and angle 4, which are also directly opposite of each other, those are vertical and they are congruent, which means those two angle measurements also would be the exact same. So then let's talk about adjacent right below that. Two angles are adjacent if they share a common vertex, a common side, and don't overlap. So when I think about adjacent, I think about next door neighbor. It's the person next to you. It's adjacent to you. So the adjacent angles that you see in this model, for example, are angle 1 and angle 2. They're right next door to each other. They share a common vertex, which is right in the middle there, even though you don't see that vertex point. And they share a common side, this ray, and they don't overlap. So 1 and 2 absolutely are considered adjacent angles. Also, angles 2 and 3 are adjacent to each other. Angles 3 and 4 are adjacent, and angles 4 and 1. There's actually 4 sets of adjacent angles. Again, they are right next door to each other. So let's practice this a little bit. We're going to go to page 537 at the top, example number 2. It says, identify a pair of vertical angles and adjacent angles in the diagram at the right. So you'll see it looks like an intersection of Lane Avenue and Garfield Road. So let's talk about vertical angles. So let's identify what those are in that intersection. Vertical, directly across from each other. So angle 1 and directly across angle 3 are considered vertical angles, directly opposite of each other. They would have the same degree measurement. They'd be congruent. You only have one more set of vertical angles. If you look at angle 2 and angle 4, angle 2, angle 4 are also directly opposite of each other and would have the same degree measurement and be congruent. Those are considered, again, vertical. So you only have 2 sets of vertical angles. Now, adjacent angles. So let's identify those also in this intersection. So remember, they have to be right next door to each other, not overlap, and share a common vertex and side. So that means angle 1 is adjacent right next to angle 2. Angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent angles. Now, they are not congruent. These are not the same angle measurements. They're just adjacent because they are right next to each other. Okay, we have another set. Angle 2 is also adjacent to angle 3, right next to each other. Share that common side and share a common vertex. There's another set, angle 3 and angle 4, also adjacent. And lastly, one more set, angle 4 and angle 1. So there are 4 sets of adjacent angles here as well. Okay, so now we're going to scroll down and you're going to try what we just did in example 2. You're going to try it in guided practice on page 538. I want you to try number 3. So you're going to look at that railroad crossing sign and you're going to identify the vertical angles and the adjacent angles. Oops, kind of messy. Vertical angles, and then I'll skip a space here and you can list the adjacent. So take a few minutes to do that, pause the video, and then when you think you've got it, unpause and check your answers. All right, let's take a peek and see how you did. So your vertical angles, check to see. Did you get 1 and 3 are vertical to each other and 2 and 4 are vertical to each other? And then did you also get for your adjacent angles, there should be 4 of them, 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 1. Okay, so we're going to try a couple more. We're going to keep going here. And I want you to look at, we're going to look at 4 through 9. This is going to be the independent practice on page 539. So it says, identify structure. Refer to the diagram at the right. Identify each angle pair as adjacent, vertical, or neither. So these angles all here that are labeled 1 through 6, we're going to take each one, starting with number 4, and determine if it is one of these, adjacent, vertical, or neither. So in number 4, if we look at angle 2 and angle 5, 2 and 5, I'm pointing to both of them. They're directly opposite of each other. And if you look, it looks like they're the exact same angle measurement as well. And so we know when they're directly opposite and have the same angle measure, it's vertical. So I'm just going to put a V there for vertical. Those two angles are vertical to each other. Let's try number 5, angle 4 and angle 6. 4 right here, 6 right here. Now, remember, for them to be adjacent to each other, they have to share a common side and the same vertex and not overlap. Well, I already know that these are not vertical. 4 and 6, not vertical to each other. Adjacent, now this is where I need to be careful and think, are they really next to each other? Are angles 4 and 6 right next door to each other? Do they share a common ray, a common side? They don't. So let me erase here. Make that a little bit clearer. Angle 4, between angle 4 and angle 6, there's angle 5 kind of inserted right between both. So because of that, there's actually 2 rays coming out. Angle 4 and angle 6 don't share the same common ray. So in this case, it's neither. I'm going to put an N, neither. Number 6, angle 3 and angle 4. So here and here. Now those absolutely are adjacent. Those are next to each other, next door to each other. They share a common side here, a common ray, and a vertex. All right. Let's look at Number 7, angles 5 and angle 6. Angles 5 and angle 6. Yep. Those are also adjacent. They're right next to each other. Again, share that common ray. Don't overlap. Number 8, angle 1 and angle 3. Angle 1 is up here. Angle 3 is down here. They do not share a common side. Neither. Angle 2 is in between both of those, so they're not adjacent to each other. And then number 9, angle 1 and angle 4, directly opposite each other. They look like they're both the same degree measurement. Those are vertical. Okay, I'm going to try one more with you. And we're going to go down to page 541. Now this is going to be the extra practice. All the way at the bottom, number 24. We're going to try this together. I'm going to show you a couple things here. So let's get started. Okay, 24. The John Hancock Center in Chicago is shown at the right. Classify each pair of angles. So letter A, angle 1 and angle 2. Over here, they're right next to each other. So if they're right next to each other, again, by all means, those are considered adjacent. Letter B, angle 2 and angle 4. 2 and 4, directly opposite of each other. It looks like they're also the exact same angle measurement. Those are vertical. Just abbreviating here. Letter C, angle 3 and angle 4. Those are right next to each other. Those are adjacent. Angle 1 and angle 3, directly opposite of each other here. Those are vertical. Okay, now letter E. If the measure of angle 2 is 66 degrees, write that in there, 66 degrees. What are the measures of the other angles? So you need angle 1, you need angle 3, and you need angle 4. You need to figure out 3 more angles. So what do we know? Okay, well, if angle 2 is 66 and directly opposite is angle 4, and we know angle 2 and angle 4, based on letter B here, are vertical to each other. If these are vertical, remember they're the exact same degree measurement. So angle 4 is also 66 degrees. They're the exact same when they're vertical like that. Now, angle 1 and angle 3, how do we find those? So remember when we were doing some vocabulary yesterday, and we talked about how a straight line is 180 degrees. Well, yeah, keep that in mind, because now when we look over here to the right at angle 1 and angle 2, we know these two are adjacent. We know angle 2 is 66. We know that angle 1 and angle 2 are being formed from this straight line here. And this straight line is 180 degrees. So if this straight line is 180 degrees, I need to know what angle 1 is. If I can take and subtract 66 degrees from 180, I should be able to tell what angle 1 is. All right, so that would tell me that there's 114 degrees left over. And so angle 1 is 114. Again, angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. This is a 180 degree straight line. 114 and 66 added together would give you 180 degrees for that straight line. And it makes sense. This angle 1 is an obtuse angle. It has to be greater than 90 degrees. So it's 114 when we do the math. Well, Angle 1, I'm going to write down 114 degrees. Now directly opposite is angle 3. Remember, these are the same because they're vertical. This is also, oops, I made a mistake there. It's also 114, so angle 3, 114 degrees. There they are. So based on what you've done today, the video that you watched on vertical and adjacent angles, the lesson right here in the book, now what you're going to do is practice a little bit more. So you'll notice back on the agenda, it says lesson 1 practice. So when you open this up, this is what you're going to see. You'll have 6 problems at the top where you're going to name each angle in 4 ways. And then you're going to classify it as acute, right, obtuse, or straight. So 1 through 6, this was Monday's lesson. You can go back in the book and look to see how we classified the angles and named each angle 4 ways. And then down here, 7 through 12, this is based on what we talked about today, today's lesson. And so you're going to identify the angles that are listed based on this diagram as either adjacent, vertical, or neither. And when you're done, and you can do this on a lined sheet of paper, which is fine. You don't need to actually, you're not going to type on this or print it out. You can do it on a lined sheet of paper. And then here is the answer key when you are ready to check and see how you did. That's how you're ending the hour. So I hope you have a great Tuesday. We will see you back on Thursday.